I'm Erin Dooley. I'm a screenwriter, speaker, and long-distance walker. I walked 85 miles on the Wicklow Way in Ireland, 96 miles on the West Highland Way in Scotland, but it all started with 500 miles across Spain on the Camino de Santiago to forgive and find healing. I documented my experience in a film, and I give talks on forgiveness. And now I'm recreating this by inviting people to join me on walks to forgive.
This week, I'm in New Orleans, and I'll be talking with Daniel about forgiving his home country of France.
There is a tale by Aesop, and one of them is about the dog and the wolf. And the wolf in the winter is becoming pretty skinny. He stumbles across a big dog, no sign of being skinny. I want to ask him how he gets to still be well fed like that. So he goes to the dog and he says, "How did you do that? How can you still be a little bit overweight even in the midst of the winter?" And the dog says, "Oh, my brother wolf, it's pretty easy. You should follow me now. There is a place, it's called the farm, and there is a master. He's so nice, he feeds you twice a day." And the wolf said, "Okay, I'm in, show me the way." And the dog brings him, and on the way to the farm, the wolf looks at the dog and he sees a big mark of no fur around the neck and some scars and some bleeding. And he said, "What's that around your neck?" They say, "Oh, that's the chain that the master put you on." Then the wolf says, "Bye, I prefer being skinny and free." And so somehow this is what happened to me.
If we were in France, we might go to Mont Blanc or the GR Trail in Corsica. But since we're in New Orleans, we're going to go to City Park. The oldest urban park in the country sees 1 million visitors a year. New Orleanians have enjoyed the 1,300 acres since 1854.
I think that the pain, the discomfort, the injustice that made me decide to leave my native land, France, and later on in life realize, wait, what happened? Why did I leave? Well, because I was uncomfortable. Why? Because they made it uncomfortable. Would you have stayed otherwise? Yeah, I would have enjoyed my French Riviera. I would have enjoyed the sea. I would have enjoyed the fantastic food. I would have enjoyed the beautiful friendship that I can have over there because we're more alike, but I did not. I moved to the United States when I was 24, and that was around 30 years ago. In my case, I live in a country that is basically atheistic, agnostic, cynical, and I pop out like, that's like an anomaly. Oh, this one is Christian. And he also has some traditional value, and he was raised on weekend in the mountain, whereas all of these urban people think differently. If I could pinpoint a little bit more what could have pushed me away, it would have been an overall experience when talking, discussing, being around people that the values I had were quite strongly aggressed, and those values being either Christian or pretty traditional. I was always into arguments, heated arguments, which I was frequently winning, but that still is not a pleasant situation. There is objectivity in what's wrong, but the subjectivity of how the people feel and how I was feeling was not good. And so this overall aggressive atmosphere is what made me think, I'd like to see another way of life. Slowly I discovered that it was not a person that pushed me out of my normal life that I should have had in France. It was an ideology, a system of thoughts. There was another element that made me decide to leave my native land. I came from a lower social class family. The old world is a lot more differentiated in between social classes. If here you could say, okay, there are maybe 4 categories of levels, over there may be 40, and everybody knows which level you belong to and where you should be. And if you are not, then people talk about it. I did succeed to go to the university. That was one of the first in many generations in my family, the only child in my family of 5 children to go to a college. I arrived in Paris and I was projected in a world of more aristocracy, more wealth. When I joined more of that world that by faith I belonged to, I did not belong to their social class. I was coming from a lower class, suddenly an anomaly that found the faith. I was transported in a higher social class where then I had another frustration, which is, wow, they forget me for parties. Wow, they get the job. I think it's because they talk the same way. I think because they wear the shoes, because they are very much looking at what do you wear. When you are not invited to the good time together, and on Monday you are back in classroom or on a job, you realize that friendship had formed over the weekend, and you realize that, oh, so what do I do? And so I was behind. So that was also one thing that makes me feel like it's harder for somebody who comes from under, even though he has the diploma, even though he has the skill. So that too frustrated me. And that's also the second reason, I think, why I left that country, thinking I could do better in America.
After walking through the bayou in the heat and humidity of New Orleans, we decided a dinner break was in order. So Daniel cooked up a great meal, invited his friend Amelie over, and we discussed forgiveness.
Why I left? That's what I left. That's why I left them!
So for you to feel like it is a place where you can be who you are, your true self and all of, who you are.
Yeah.
That's growing. What do you think, what is the thing that you seek out the most?
So one factor is, does it resemble where I come from, which I was fleeing? The more I go, the more the places where I live in America look like France, like New Orleans, and have the sea, because I was from the sea part of France. I know that one thing that I practically do is that I go where there is community of people that are like me. If I'm a bee, I go with bees. If I'm a ladybug, I go with ladybugs.
Like if there was something different about leaving France or anything, what do you wish could be different?
If I had not been so much singled out, then I would have stayed. But when you become so rare, and so that you cannot exchange with many people because then they aggress you verbally, why would you stay? These all sounds mild, the reasons for me to go. Nevertheless, if I consider my overall life and what type of life these caused me to have, it's kind of a shame and too bad, because even though I'm happy to be in America, I'm not in my normal environment. Here I found new and different obstacles, like just my accent, or just the fact that I had to create wealth here. I had to create a career here. That put me back another maybe 15 years again behind, to have to learn English, to have to learn the ways of life in America, to have to know how to behave in an American corporation. All of those are very different. So it slows you down. In hindsight, I'm thinking this basic cynical ideology that holds France and makes people go through it or not go anywhere was something that was pretty abusive, to the point where it made people leave and have to start all over somewhere else. And it appears to be, it's not that bad, but it makes you leave your native land, your mother that passes away when you are not there, that you don't see even your younger brother or nephews getting older. That is affecting also a life. So one could ask, well, why don't you stay? Why not fight? Why not try to change it? The answer is that I did it. I did it for quite a while. I was only 14 that I was already talking back to the teachers. I gave it. I had done that for at least 10 years between age 14 and age 24. I was getting impatient actually. A friend who came back from India said, you cannot change 1 billion people. So I'm thinking, I could not change 60 million people. More and more I could perceive that I had more to do. Even for my own country, I could do more from America, which is what I've done. And this is happening even more and more as I'm becoming more skilled in my trade. My naive intuition were correct. A life in America gave me more occasion, more opportunity to become more what I was to become, to have my skill being used, have my nature being useful in a good job, and therefore, like a flower, you bloom. And I think it's part of happiness. Years later, I saw another harm done to the life of somebody who moves away into another country and returns, is that life at home in your native land has diverged. And it may have gone one way, and your life in America has diverged and goes further away, and you become estranged. You become strangers to your brothers and family. You do not understand anymore each other, so you become more of a stranger. There are times where you feel, oh boy, I'm not anymore really French, and I'm far from being American. And so you are your own little planet, and it's a little bit lonely sometimes on that planet. At least for my environment, the strange thing has been that when returning, there was no curiosity of what I had been doing for 1 year away, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years away. No curiosity, no question. One of the strange things that I experienced, which not many people do actually when you think about it, is that your life somewhere else, which is your true life, is a ghost. It's like you are where we left you when you left 12, 10 years ago, which is pretty offensive when you loved what you have done for 10 years, where you may have been proud of something. You wish to say it, to share it, and nope, it's ignored, and that's hurtful. I think some of the more intense negative feeling that I have toward, unfortunately, my homeland come up when I'm about to travel back to France. It is so frustrating. You have like resentment. That's what I feel even as I talk about it, of like, what a terrible place they made of my country. It did not have to go that way. And that makes me sad, because they are doing that to my land, because they are doing that to my brothers, to my nieces and nephews, and they know nothing better than that. It's a pity. It's a shame. It's a waste of humanities, of people who could have bloomed so much, of a country that could have continued its course that was pretty good for around 1,600 years, 1,600 years, and now it's only going down and down and down. And as for my country, I think that monolithically, both most media, film, public school, and also all the past literature is pretty cynical and aggressive toward whatever stands, whatever could still be giving hope is dismantled like a statue.
You know, the things that you found in the culture and the institutions in France that were making it a place where you couldn't survive and thrive in the way you felt other people, they are able to. And in every country, you know, when there are changes, somebody wanted that change.
Yeah.
So, you know, something that you found offensive, other people wouldn't. And so, is forgiveness even the right term of thinking?
Yeah, good point. Yes. But I think forgiveness in the structural sin, hey, that can be called almost structure sin. from you, the forgiver, I think it's still a forgiveness because how you perceived it at first, and that's how you have rage and hate happen and anger. How you perceived it, and you were wrong, that it was personal and meant the offense. You personally still perceive it as a personal offense, even though the guy belongs to a political party of destruction of your world. You take it personal. That's the big overused phrase, don't take it personal,
right.
I think. And so in this case, you still have to do an act of true forgiveness. Do we want to live in a world of an eye for an eye, or in a civilization of forgive? Maybe it boils down also to that. What I see in the eye for an eye pattern is that it's very uncomfortable. Yeah, well, then your life is made up of power struggle your whole life. Do we want that? I don't want that.
Yeah.
It's not constructive. It rots inside you. It almost increases with time. And then if you go on that path, you'll repeat that same eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. You'll apply to other situations.
Yeah.
You are never at peace. It just inflates the outside world of belligerence. So you live in an eternal world of chaos and of war. We see the very plain, hard, loud, smelly consequences of that philosophy of life. So anger, offense, hurt, what do I do with that? It's pretty uncomfortable. I want to deal with it. One of the best paths is to make peace with it. This partly includes forgiveness. And I think I have to make it with subtlety, because the harm is done and it's still there. Or the people are suffering right now. But the evilness is more in a system. Even those who teach that system, they don't know better. They were taught that same system. So what I think I must do is try to not take it personal. Try to not dislike those who manifest these ideas, but to realize that it comes from a way of thinking, a political system. It's all into a set of books that they have to read, the Rousseaus and the Marx and the Sartre. And when I say that and when I do that, I found more peace, because I realized, the guy, it's not his fault at all. That's all he was given with his head to chew on. That's what he was fed. He's even like a victim of it. I think my path to find more peace, and which include forgiveness, is to separate who carries the harm and where does the harm comes from. It comes from thinkers of the past, writers, politicians who live off those ideas. For me, to find balance is to discern what comes from an idea that became a lifestyle and that forced them to live in a specific way and behave in a specific way, and the people who are in there. That's not their fault. And that appeases me.
Before my week with Daniel, I never really thought about forgiving a country, but now I think that we can all relate to Daniel's story. What do we do with people that have completely opposite views as us? What if it's the entire country and we don't think that it is in the direction that it should be going, and we don't think we can thrive there? What do we do? And while it's a very different way to look at forgiveness, I think it is relevant for all of us, and we can have great conversations, and maybe if there's somebody in your life with whom you disagree, you can invite them on a walk to forgive.